Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's a moderately nice Friday. What we're going to be talking about today is immersive media. And this is going to be an introductory session going over what immersive media is, perhaps why we should care about it, and how we could apply it here at Bucks in our own teachings. Okay, so let's go back to the slides and immersive media introduction. So what is immersive media? It's digital media. Okay, it's all computer generated. And the whole point is that it is supposed to create a sensory experience. There's three different flavors out there of immersive media, immersive technology: augmented reality, or AR, virtual reality, or VR, and mixed reality, MR. All right, so we have those three different types, and all of them work to enhance and engage individuals with what they are experiencing. The reason that we use immersive technologies, or that we should perhaps consider using them, is immersion leads to engagement. Immersive technology has been around for a while now, but it is still somewhat novel. And novelty, as we know, attracts people. They're curious about it. When they see something new, pay more attention to it. When they pay attention to it, hopefully, they're going to become more engaged with what we're saying to them or what we're presenting to them. So, what kind of forms does immersive technology take? Is it, expensive technology? Do I have to go and purchase new equipment? Do I have to do, anything weird? Does the school have to go and invest in new tools, new technologies? Not really, because immersive technology can happen on mobile devices, the cell phones that we all carry around in our purses and pockets. Right here, you see an image of a cell phone. I believe it's an Apple iPhone, aimed at a group of people on the other side of a table. On the table, in reality, we just see a few pieces of paper, but on that phone, we have a robot with a cast shadow appearing on that table. That's augmented reality. What we're doing is taking a scene as witnessed by a camera in the mobile device and adding computer information on top of it. And this computer information in this particular instance is visual. It's a 3D robot. Okay, it could also be auditory. You could go and pan the camera around that room, and if it recognizes an object or a person, because we have facial recognition now built into these devices, it could make a sound. It could make you aware that, oh, there's a friend of yours, right, in a crowd of people. So immersive tech can work on your cell phone. It can also work on a computer monitor. Here we have just a regular old Dell monitor, and what we see in it looks like a nice computer graphic, but it is a representation of a virtual reality experience called Wilder World. This is a virtual world, or metaverse. You probably heard that around in the past few months. A metaverse that is being created by a group of people around the world. Wilder World is headquartered out of San Francisco, and what they're doing in this first iteration of their metaverse is recreating a futuristic version of Miami. The person that's behind it is known as Frank Wilder, so they're calling it Wyami. They're putting a W in front of a lot of words, very creative. So you can use a cell phone, you can use a regular old computer monitor and get this experience. Now, immersion, when you're paying attention and you're looking at it, is very good and interesting. When you're looking at your computer monitor, it's interesting. You can get engaged with it and drawn in, but the next level of engagement does require some new equipment. And that's the headsets, the augmented reality headsets. We had Google Glass a few years ago. What we see here are two new headsets. One is the MetaQuest Pro. It was just released a few weeks ago. And the other is the HTC Vive XR Elite. We're throwing in a lot of words here. This is a new headset from the company HTC. It was announced at the Consumer Electronics Show last week, and it will be shipping, according to the company, in just a few weeks. I think in February, they say. This technology allows you to experience the immersive media just like you are sitting today. Wherever you are, whatever room, you're looking ahead at the computer for Zoom. If you look to your left, your right, what you see are the surroundings of your room. When you're wearing a headset like this and you're in a augmented or virtual space, when you look around your room, depending on the modality of the immersive experience, you will either see your room with different things added to it in a 3D augmentation. In a virtual world, you see the synthetic environment, the computer-generated environment. When you turn to your left, you see what objects are in the virtual world to your left, and the same for the right-hand side. So it's a fully immersive experience using the goggles. Now, with the goggles, the MetaQuest Pro is around $1,500. It's brand new and it's an enterprise-grade product. Their consumer products are around $500. The HTC Vive is their mainline competitor. At least that's what they're hoping when they release it, as I'd mentioned, in about a month or so. That's coming in at around $1,000. So we have price competition. We'll see where the market goes with it. So we've seen the technology. It could be a cell phone, a mobile device, a tablet, a computer screen, or these headsets. What we end up with is the real world with computer-generated content. That's the whole concept behind immersive media, is we take what really exists and we augment it, we add to it. The digital media, as I mentioned previously, it can be visual, it could be auditory, it could be haptic. Now, if you think about it, your cell phone, you either have the ring, when someone calls you, it rings, plays a ringtone, beeps, whatever you have it programmed to do, or if you put it on silent, it vibrates. That vibration is a haptic feedback. So with immersive media, if we're using devices like our cell phones, we could trigger that haptic feedback. So when you are panning around a room, when you're looking at, when you're manipulating an object on the screen, we can trigger that vibration in the device and give the user a haptic feedback. All right? So that's what AR is. Now, how complex is this stuff? Is augmented reality really virtual worlds? Are you creating big graphics and imagining what a new city looks like, a new planet looks like, or what a conference room looks like? Immersive media can be very simply the addition of graphics to a scene. Over here, you're going to see a cell phone where someone's holding it up as they walk down a street. And what the augmentation does is it adds in little graphics letting you know, hey, food is 7 meters forward. There's coffee 16 meters forward, and on and on. So you can use augmented reality as a travel enhancement so that you could find where you're going. It'll feed you directions visually on that screen. You could use it in an educational setting. Let's say you have a field trip going to Valley Forge Park. Augmented reality systems can either read a barcode, a QR code, or they can actually search for physical objects. And when the camera sees those triggers, release information. So if you're at that Valley Forge Park, you could be looking at the different artifacts and have a virtual tour guide in your phone. When it sees that trigger, maybe it'll release an auditory message, maybe it'll release textual, or play a video and show you a recreation of what life was like way back when in Valley Forge. So AR, augmented reality, can be a very simple visual thing. It could just be a little icon like we see here. It could be a little bit more. In this example, We have a pump, and we have our individual wearing a pair of AR glasses. So instead of holding up a phone, just like Google Glass, if you remember, they were a set of glasses that you wore on your face, and it projected the augmented information on the lens. So it was like a little holograph floating there. You look at the pump, and the augmentation visualizes what the impeller and how it's assembled inside of the device. So you can use it for actual trade work. You could use it for engineering as you design, move CAD images over so that you could see how things work, or if you're repairing it, what the process is to take it apart. Okay, so this is a little bit more advanced. It's more complex graphics, but all of them are fed from either creations of graphic designers or industrial designs. Now, the last image I want to show you here, you may have witnessed yourself, depending on how playful you are. Does anyone recognize what this is? Anyone remember?
Pokemon Go.
There we go. Pokemon Go was probably the most popular augmented reality experience we've had in recent times. Let me jump to the next slide. This is an amazing thing. So with Pokemon Go, we'll talk about this. You just held up your mobile phone, and no matter where you were in the world, the Pokemons would appear and the game would drive you to find them. So one of the highlights of this game was that it got people, instead of gamers sitting behind a desk or just looking at their phone on the bus, it got them to go out into the world, move around, get a little exercise, and work with other people. They played with other people. So it became a really impressive social phenomenon. Pokemon Go, it came out in 2016. I can't believe that it's been that long now. It launched in 2016, and since then, there's been over 1 billion downloads on Android and Apple devices. Boggles the mind. I remember when Niantic released this, their stock jumped millions of dollars, their valuations. It was just incredible. I've got a little video clip here. It's about 33 seconds long, and it will talk about the technology and what is interesting, because they didn't release it and it's the same game today as it was back then. They've been improving it over the years.
In the new AR Plus mode, Pokemon have a better sense of where they are relative to the real world. As you get closer, they're going to get bigger. You can sneak around them, or you can get them really close. Getting closer makes it a bit easier to get those great or excellent throws with your Pokeball, but if you move too fast, the Pokemon are going to get scared and they're going to bolt off. If you can get close enough without spooking them, Expert Handler mode kicks in, giving you a small catch rate bonus along with some extra XP and Stardust at the end. The new mode also makes Nanab berries a little bit more useful, as Pokemon aren't going to freak out as much when you move.
All right, the key thing there was that with augmented reality, it wasn't just flat graphics like we saw with the traveling signage. It wasn't just simply a 3D object like that robot or the impeller inside of the pump. It is a 3D experience that was triggered, or it was triggered by the location you were in. So it used the GPS in the phone, it read the surface area that people were in and placed the Pokemons appropriately in the space. Made it incredibly popular, incredibly fun. The nice thing about this is all of this technology exists. It's not something that anyone has to go out and invent. In fact, augmented reality has become such a staple that it's built into the core operating system of both Android phones and Apple's iPhones. So being or wanting to go and use that technology in an educational setting, developers out there, the publishers, don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's just simply there. Now, we talked about Pokemon Go 2016, and a few of you recognized it, but augmented reality actually has been around longer than that. Does anyone here watch football? And American football, we're not talking soccer, which is football. All right, got a few hands up there. Well, if you're an ardent NFL fan, then you've been experiencing augmented reality since around 1998, when ESPN put augmented reality in the form of the 1st and 10 scrimmage line on screen. That technology was simple back then. It looked like it was a painted line on the field. Today, the 1st and 10 system looks like they're actually painting the blades of grass. But that technology, of course, has advanced tremendously, because augmented reality with our cell phones, it uses the camera aimed at whatever we're aiming our camera at and putting it on the screen. Television is a television camera, and the screen is our TV. In between is a computer. Here, I'm going to show you a little video clip. And by the way, did the audio play for Pokemon before? I forgot to ask. Okay, good. Here is a little clip from the National Association of Broadcasters trade show. I believe this was 2 years ago. So again, this technology is advancing very rapidly. Take a look. This is about 40 seconds, by the way.
Let's open up the Visitor Key basement and see what else we have down there. There we go. This is the 2019 Ducati from MotoGP. One of the key things that we're showing here for the big AR show is the use of Vision 4 and the power of the engine to be able to do photorealistic virtual sets, augmented reality, and set extensions.
Our vision is about storytelling. So we constantly keep inventing new ways of helping our customers present their stories better.
The combination of using Viz Engine 4, Viz Virtual Studio, and Viz Art to control everything is really what we're talking about here with the idea of software-defined visual storytelling.
Visual storytelling. And as educators, that's what we do. We tell stories in an educational setting to help our students understand the material that we're presenting to them. And this technology, in this case, in the broadcast industry, allows them to position elements in a 3D space. You have individuals interacting with it. They could move behind it. You could go and move your hand, just like with Zoom here. If you wave, you can now activate a system where when we wave, it goes and puts the little hands up on the screen so that the presenter knows that someone has a question. It is able to sense movement and do things, use that as a trigger. Last example I'd like to show you is that augmented reality actually has made its way to our little valley in the form of 6 ABC's weather reporting.
46 Allentown right now, 52 Philadelphia. So far, we had a high of 59, 54 at the Atlantic City Airport. As we go through the night, what you heard with that rain and thunder early on was the warm front. So temperatures are going to go back up overnight into the upper 50s near midnight into the wee hours of the morning. 9 a.m., still 53 degrees to start your Friday.
That was last night's weather report. The augmentation appears in the studio set with our weather person. And as they move their hand, that triggers new things happening. So this technology is it's simply amazing what it's able to do, what we can do with it. All right. Augmented reality can be as simple as something that is used on all of our students' cell phones. Some of the ways that they can do it would be in textbooks, right? Now we have physical textbooks and electronic textbooks. We have the big movement for OERs, open educational resources. With a physical textbook, you could have, as depicted here, a QR code on the page, or it could be a graphic element somewhere on the page that if the student aims their phone at the page, additional information is presented. Maybe it's in the book, a 2D graphic, and on their phone, it turns into a 3D movable object. Well, you may say, well, if I have an ebook, I don't need that. Well, imagine that the ebook, which is being delivered on someone's cell phone, it could then go and say, aim your cell phone at the table, move to the next page, if you will, and then it projects that 3D object into the scene that people are looking at on their phone. And as I had mentioned, the technology is so advanced that it will see your hand. So if you move your hand, maybe you're spinning the molecular compound, right? If we're teaching chemistry, as just one example of how it could be used. Another way that AR or augmented reality can be used in an educational setting would be for language learning. So when we're teaching people foreign language, or we're using English as a second language, when we have students where English is not their native tongue, they may have signs, they may see printed information that they don't quite understand, and that can be frustrating. If you're traveling overseas and you don't speak the language, you don't know where to go, what to do, Google Translate has an app where you just simply aim your phone at that sign, letting it know which language it's looking at. Many times it can figure it out for itself, and it superimposes in your language what the sign says. And this can work in the reverse. So for ESL courses, you could have the student with their native tongue looking at information, and it translates it for them. Now, why would this be important? Because it helps the student learn. They're not frustrated over what they're experiencing. They can't do the translation. They're having a difficult time with it. We've all seen it in students when they don't quite get a concept, they get frustrated. That slows down the learning, that impedes learning. So here we have a potential tool that will assist in the learning process, because I can look at that sign, I can look at that word, see the translation, and make the correlation back and forth. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. One last use for augmented reality. Historical information. I mentioned Valley Forge before. You could go, and here we have ruins. The augmented reality, the augmentation might be to show what the building looked like before in its glory, right? It may be an addition of information to the scene so that you could hear about what life was like back in the day, say at Valley Forge. So these are just some of the ideas that exist of what augmented reality can do and how it could be used. Anyone have any questions about this or any comments?
I just have one comment, like just in the example of the translation of the ESL. You take a very optimistic attitude and you say that's going to help people learn. I just wonder if people will be like, oh, now I don't need to learn it at all because I have the device and I can just use it. Or someone's going to talk to me and I'll just turn on my phone and it'll just automatically translate it. Now I don't have to learn the language.
Absolutely. That is a concern with any of our technologies, right? If people think that this is going to translate for them and it will do a good job, and the technology, as you probably all know, it gets better and better. We've got AI programs that are floating out there right now. Everything gets better, but, and this is something that I would imagine we all teach our students, or tell our students at least, is that while these are wonderful, what do you do when you drop it and it breaks, or if the battery fails? So the technology can be a crutch, Stretch, exactly right. And we have to guide our students on the proper use of the technology and how not to necessarily rely on them too well, right? Too much. I'm sure all of us, when we were in grade school, learned multiplication tables, learned how to do math. Argument being, well, why nowadays? Why should I bother? I've got a calculator. I've got a scientific calculator in my pocket. What if the technology fails us, right? What do we do? Valid concern, though. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see here. Let me. Oh, and of course my switcher there.
Stan, this is Regina.
Yes.
Aside from education,
Mhm.
I can see where it would be very helpful in Greece for all the signs. My son-in-law speaks Greek fluently, but to ask him what everything means every single time when we go there is, I mean, I want to learn the language too, but it's so hard to learn Greek, especially when I really don't have an ear for it. I know some simple words, caliente, things like that, hello, goodbye. But for this signage, that's great. So I could download an app and then just point it to the signage,
Mhm.
and then I know what's going on, because many of the people speak English, so they would understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's
But
awesome.
if someone's not around you, what do you do? Yeah, that's what Google, I believe that was the use case that they were thinking of when they created this particular app.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you know what app it is? Is it just
Google Translate. Google
Google
Translate.
Translate? Okay, yeah, I never used it, and I probably should have used it long before now, but I'll use it this summer.
Well, remember, all of this stuff is very emergent. I think Google Translate is an app maybe is a year or so old. So the
Okay.
technology's been there, but everything slowly advances.
Yeah, a long time ago there was a translator, something fish,
Babel,
on one of the browsers, right?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Anyone?
I'll have to look that
Yes,
up.
Dan, you were right, Babelfish.
Babblefish. Right, right, right.
Yeah, I think that's a reference to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Doug Adams.
I may or may not have relied on it heavily in my upper level French courses in college.
Thank you.
Sure thing, of course. And yeah, as we go through this, if you have any questions or comments, please just speak up, chime in. Well, I like interactive presentations as opposed to just me talking along, which I've been doing. I've been told that I like to hear the sound of my own voice. Okay, the next form of immersive technology is virtual reality. All right. And as I had said before, it's a synthetic environment. It's all computer generated. It's a synthetic environment that can be as small as a meeting room, right? Or it could be as expansive as an entire planet. It could be viewed on mobile devices, tablets, computers, or headsets. And in terms of immersion, you go from a mobile device that you're holding around. How many of you ever messed around with the 360 video on YouTube? This was popular a few years ago. Anyone ever see that or experience it? All right. What it was is you had a 360 camera, you recorded wherever you were, and when you watched it on YouTube, you would hold up your phone, and as you actually moved it, it used the gyroscope in your phone, you panned to left and right, you panned around as if you were looking yourself at that scene. So the 360 video on a cell phone and immersive technology can be immersive on something as simple as our cell phones. You can look left, right, up, and down and peer into, it's like a magic window into this virtual space. With a desktop, it's going to be less so. You would use your mouse or other input device, trackpad, to turn your head left and right, or perhaps use keyboards. When we think about virtual reality on a computer screen, many people naturally go towards gaming because that's the modality that has been the most popular. But that is moving over into the business space. In fact, it's been in the business space. One of the companies I worked with in my past created business virtual worlds. We created meeting spaces for various pharmaceutical companies, energy companies, so that they didn't have to bring their engineers, their scientists together for conferences. They could meet virtually in these spaces. They could work in their spaces. So we created essentially virtual libraries where they could store all of their documentation in a very visual format instead of just simply being a SharePoint where you would dive down into files. And this was, again, we're going back about 10 or so years. computer graphics weren't as good, our networking wasn't as fast, but people saw a reason to use it. It was very interesting because when I first joined that company, Second Life, has anyone heard of Second Life as a virtual space? Excellent. Regina, what was or what is Second Life, because it's still out there?
Well, it's a virtual world and you build your own avatar and you can visit worlds that have been built by other people. I tried to learn it. LaSalle was getting into it when I worked there, and they were going to build a world for all the students. I don't know if they ever did. I kind of got squashed, but it was very interesting. So on Saturday mornings, I would try to learn it myself, and you would end up like over in pubs in Ireland and stuff, you know? So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was very popular in its time. And as I mentioned, it's still in existence today. Second Life is still an operating virtual world where you could go and create an avatar, create a computer personage that you control and use to express yourself inside of Second Life. And it can look like anything you want. That's one of the interesting things in terms of virtual reality or metaverses that a lot of people are talking about. Is back in the day when I was working in that space actively, there were many stories of people that were perhaps wheelchair bound, or had other physical issues that they couldn't move around. In a virtual world, no one knows what you are, how you look, what your abilities or disabilities might be. You can put forth yourself just like everyone else. So there was a story of a person who was a paraplegic, but in Second Life, they could dance. And the joy that being able to participate in a dance with other people, something that they could not do in their day-to-day life, was immeasurable. They said that it just was really transformative of how it affected them. And that's an interesting concept. With today's virtual worlds, we could have very simplistic looking spaces. You know, you could have just a meeting room with what looks like carpeting and wall structures, and have people go and gather in them. Classroom, receive instruction. And there's several of them out there. In fact, there's a session later today with James Jabba, who will be showing you some of the virtual reality and augmented reality tools and technology that we have in the Media Lab. Or it can be from that very simple thing to photorealistic. The software, the engines that drive real-time 3D graphics have advanced immensely. Let me show you two different samples that exist. This one is called Landian. Landian is a virtual world that is being built out by people down in Colombia in South America. It is a massive planet-sized virtual world. And here, what they're depicting is actually a store. And that's the important thing. With augmented reality, with virtual reality, typically we've started off in games, gaming technology, entertainment. It allowed the technology to earn money, generate revenue, and advance. We've gotten to the point where these technologies are established. They're still advancing, of course, but they're moving into the educational space more and more. With Landian in the next slide, which is Wilder World, they have in their missions, if you will, not only to be a quote unquote game environment where people can go and entertain themselves, but one where commerce can happen, education can happen, and people can just go and make it a second life, a second place to go and live, giving deference and respect back to the original Second Life program. So here in Landian, we have what looks to be a retail outlet. So you're able to go in there and purchase either items for your avatar, clothing, or what's happening more and more is you go through this virtual shopping experience, make a purchase, and have it shipped to your home. Walmart has done a investigatory build of a virtual Walmart where you could go through and fill your shopping cart and either have the products that you've purchased ready for you when you pull up or have them actually delivered. This is Wilder World. I had mentioned before. They're headquartered out of California, by the way. And this is a scene out of their Miami build. With Wilder World, they also are building out technology that in its initial phase will be the city of Miami, but their goal is to create a galaxy of virtual experiences. So you would have Miami grow out to the entire planet of Earth, and then other planets where people could go and buy into. I had mentioned business before. Many of the modern day metaverses or virtual worlds have in-world commerce systems. Again, similar to what Second Life did. When you had mentioned that the school was going to establish itself in Second Life, they most likely would have bought an island in Second Life and then built out the 3D space for students, faculty, staff, what have you. Okay, virtual reality used for meetings, business meetings, classrooms, et cetera, et cetera. This video is about 1 minute and 26 seconds. So let's show you this and see what your thoughts are about it. Here. The Wild World system is interesting in that more than any of the other metaverse projects that I've seen out there, their business model is they attracted investor money, and then they went and tapped into the NFT craze. So what they were doing were selling objects that would be utilized inside of their virtual world, their metaverse. So that was used to fund their development. I believe this system is supposed to be operational sometime this year, similar to Landian. Landian did not go as deeply into the NFT space as Wilder World, though. But it's very interesting. They have it where it is mimicking our real life. So you saw flying cars, motorcycles, vehicles, people walking around, animals. They are using artificial intelligence technology to have animals that will follow you around, kind of like what we had years ago, Neopets, the little devices that people would wear on their watches and play with the digital pet, and on and on. So everything that has existed before is just being added together and being built into these newer technologies. Another use for virtual reality, and if you go to James's session, you will see this, I believe, is 3D Organon. When you put on a headset or look at it on a 2D screen, you have the human body. And with this program, you can dive down from the epidermis, the skin level, all the way down to the skeletal structure, seeing nervous system, pulmonary, and on and on. And it's actually used by our school to help students learn anatomy. You're able to go through the system. It's quite amazing. yesterday, James and I were in the media lab looking at this, and I was struck, even though I had seen this before, how he was wearing the headset and manipulating the skeleton, and I was watching on the TV set that we have connected next to it, how you can learn about anatomy, even if you're not fully immersed in it, just by watching the TV set. Now, having more headsets and more people being able to be immersed into it, is a much better approach, because James had the fully immersed experience. I was watching what he was doing, but it's interesting how impactful it was from just experiencing what another person was controlling, even on a 2D plane. So I had mentioned before, with virtual reality, you can experience it on your mobile device, on your computer screen or a tablet. It does enhance and improve the experience for the learner. Okay, now, will they actually go and learn more? Of course, it depends on that individual, but the tools are quite compelling. They do change the experience. This last one that I want to show you here is virtual reality for vocational training. And this is what we're doing down at the Bristol campus. We have some VR equipment there for the trades. This particular example is from Becker, which is a mining company. And this simulator, this virtual reality simulator, is for proximity detection and collision. So you have a person operating a device that is perhaps thousands of yards underground in a rather dangerous environment. What in the trades we want to use virtual reality for, and there are several companies that are building simulators like this, is get the individual familiar with the equipment before they actually touch the equipment, before they go into that dangerous environment. So this particular image was of a mining vehicle operating down and proximity detection. So you become used to any alarms or instrumentation on the device, so that when you actually go down, if an alarm goes off, you are more used to it. It's a more common experience for you, what you need to do. Any questions on virtual reality or any comments? No? Okay. Virtual reality is very interesting from an educational standpoint. It can be used for scientific visualizations. I think I had mentioned previously molecular compounds, to see how different elements from the periodic table may be combined. There's a lot of different ways it could be used, all the way to our STEM, with going back to the image of the impeller pump, right? So it's a very exciting technology. And as I mentioned, James will be showing you some of the tools that we already have on our campus that use these technologies and are making education, interesting and hopefully more engaging for our students. Okay, the final version of immersive technology is mixed reality. And this is one that's kind of interesting, because mixed reality takes augmented reality and virtual reality and combines it with your environment. Now, augmented reality, you might be saying, it already does take computer-generated information, visuals, auditory, what have you, and mix it with what we're looking at. Yes. And virtual reality ideally envelops us entirely in it. Well, mixed reality is a interesting amalgamation of the two of them. And I want to show you an image of one version of mixed reality that, when I saw it, is what really clicked for me, that, wow, this is a game changer in terms of trades, teaching people for the trades or any other style of education. What we have here is a person sitting in the cockpit of a plane. It could be a helicopter. It could be any type of machinery. She's wearing a headset. With augmented reality, you can use your phone. You can also have a head-mounted device like Google Glass. With virtual reality, you could use your phone, you could use your computer, or you can use a head-mounted device. Mixed reality requires us to have a head-mounted device. And what this head-mounted device, back when we looked at the two from HTC and Oculus, the Pro version that just came out, they have screens that you look at. They're mounted close to your eyes, so you see the computer graphics. But on the front of the visor are cameras aimed out at the world. And what mixed reality does is it takes the signal from the camera and then displays it on the screen that's right in front of our eyes. So what we have here with this flight simulator, we have our operator holding the yoke of the plane. You see the operational screen, the instrumentation in front of them. You even see the cockpit glass, that little frame structure in front of them. But they have a white wall, they have a plain wall. What mixed reality does for that individual is they can reach forward and hold the yoke. They see their own hand. They don't see a computer generated hand. They don't see like a glove. They see their own hand. The instrumentation, if they touch a button on that touch screen and it changes, they actually see it. But what's beyond all that white field is the plane flying. It's the runway when they're taxiing to take off or coming in for a landing. So the computer mixes actual reality, the buttons and controls you see in front of you, with computer generated information that you can look left, right, up, down, and have a completely immersed experience. Now that's pretty high tech, right? That's a flight simulator. I would imagine that is well into the six figures, and not just 100 grand. I would imagine it's going to be a little bit more. $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. Well, what would be more realistic? How about facility space planning or efficiency tests? Maybe you're going to be moving a factory, moving a warehouse from one location to another. With mixed reality, you could go and actually place the equipment, have everything appear where you believe it should be, and then walk through the space, walk through the actual space and see, will goods flow? Will people be able to move safely through the space? Have efficiency experts go and do time and material studies and see, are we laying things out properly? Or you could just simply go in and actually place the objects and see if you like how your room design looks. All right. So that's mixed reality there. Of course, another one I have to show is going to be gaming, because gaming is what's driven all of this. But what's important in this particular image is the individual with the headset. The headset reads where that couch is. It reads where the walls are. That's how advanced our technology has gotten. So if we have a student or a group of students standing over a work table, the goggles will know where the table begins and ends and use that space to build out the device they're working on or work up the chemical structure if it's a chemistry class. So the technology is very advanced. It's very exciting. And as we can imagine from the gaming world, it engages the students, it engages the learners and keeps them on task. Okay. I have a video here for mixed reality. This one's interesting. It's almost 2 minutes long, so bear with me, but it's a game that aids the travel industry. So it's educational and it's something that draws people in. I won't say any more. Enjoy.
So the game that we've developed is called Air New Zealand Fact or Fantasy. It's a great way to showcase both the airline and the destination and get people excited about what there is to do in New Zealand.
Welcome to the most incredible country in the world.
What we wanted to do was reinvent the traditional board game, the travel quiz game, and it comprised of the digital world, augmented the physical game board. Nobody else has done that. So we had to figure out how that was going to work.
What Magic Leap have designed is essentially a portable head-mounted solution that gives you the illusion that the objects that you're seeing are actually integrated into the real world.
My name's Pete.
One of the challenges was producing something that was going to be visually coherent, given it had physical and digital. So we needed a common aesthetic. The team was spread. Magic Leap in the States, that was the technology partner, Air New Zealand in Auckland, and Human Dynamo, who were the model maker in Wellington, and Framestore in London, who were doing the digital development.
Framestore make digital images for 9 different platforms, as well as virtual reality and augmented reality headsets.
We had the ability to be able to sort of ring fence where the creative had to sit to maximize the platform, and the Air New Zealand team, you know, filled that really creatively.
The excitement of doing something that nobody else has done, that just keeps you motivated and it keeps you fired up.
This is really just the start for us. At Air New Zealand, we're always curious. We're always looking at new ways of engaging with customers, and that's often through new technology. We're really excited about the opportunity as to where this technology could take us.
All right. I thought that was fascinating. A mixed reality experience to aid in the travel industry. New Zealand to teach people fact or fiction and to entice them to go and visit that country. Mixed reality can be used for STEM. In this example, we have automotive engineers. Maybe they're building out a car. In the modern experience of designing a vehicle, it's all computer generated. They do everything in the computer, and then they build models, actual physical models. But here you can have the person wearing goggles see the model at full scale without having to go to the build stage. They could test their designs before committing more money. We had mentioned using it in the trades. Here we have a crane operator using the actual controls in the crane before they get into the device, before they get into a potentially dangerous situation. So mixed reality definitely has its benefits and its implementations out there. So in conclusion, immersive technology, augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality, it's proven technology, and the future is unlimited right now. Technology is advancing massively. I'd mentioned James is holding a session a little bit later today. We have headsets on campus. We have technology that can be deployed out to phones and desktops and tablets. And we're even experimenting with some of the real-time 3D engines. We're using the Unreal engine right now to see what we could do ourselves on campus. So thank you very much for coming to this session. I hope it was interesting and informative to you. Do you have any final questions or comments?
No, just thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time, so have a wonderful rest of your day and enjoy the weekend.
You too, Dan.
Thank you.